Hello, and welcome to today's ARML matchups. Already kind of in progress. They started a little bit earlier than expected. My name is Edwin, the founder of ARML, and I'm joined here by Andrew. Andrew, nice to have you on the call today.
Thank you. I'll say out my screen name's Octavia, and in fact, a couple of the players playing in this game are part of the same club I am. So.
Oh, great! So you have some familiarity with some of them already.
Yeah. So I'm with the Hammer Girl in Rochester, New York, which Luke and Everett, who are both at the table right now, are part of, and it looks like Everett's dealer.
Yep, that he is, and we're already about through the first row already, so we're already through the beginning part of the game here, and Everett's got a pretty good shape here, looking easily for a Tanya type shape. Could easily call to get there if they wanted to. Shane on the left looks to be forcing through, or at least trying to push through for a Honitsu type shape. And let's see, across from us, Andrew has what, 1, 2, 3, 4 pairs. I don't know if they're going to push for Chichoitsu here, but because considering some of the shapes are a little bit more closer together, so they don't have to go for it. But that's certainly a possibility.
And Luke just made a call. Looks like Luke may also be going for a Tanyao shape.
Tanyao, possibly Toy Toy, depending upon what tiles they can get here.
Yep, Toy for sure. And Everett hasn't opened up his hand yet, so perhaps still trying to preserve a chance at reaching. Interesting about this game are the standings. You know, we're mid-season, and Andrew's sitting, in the second spot, and both Shane and Luke are just outside of being in playoff range, and if Everett's sitting at number 11, he's not far off either. If he has a really good game here, I guess someone's Tempai here.
Yep, Shane's gotten their Honitsu shape taken care of. It's an interesting shape because they're waiting for. Well, let's see. What are they waiting for? 1, 2, 3. So they're waiting for either a 2-mon, a 5-mon, or a south.
Which is a nice open weight, lots of options.
Unfortunately, the 5-mon is stuck over in Andrew's hand. There's only one other south alive, so they're only really down to one south and one 2-mon that's available, but doesn't get it. But is only one Tempai, so they do get the 3,000 for it, which is the same.
And then they slide into their dealership. Or sorry,
no, sorry.
Sorry, Luke is dealer now. Starting with a hand that's not. You got a couple shape potentially, but probably one too many honors there. But lots of room to grow. And then across the table, there's some nice shapes as well, and of course the pair of red dragons in the pocket, which can be called at any time, and a couple more pairs as well.
Yeah, the pairs aren't necessarily that big of a deal. They did draw the door, and looks like they just kicked it back. My guess then is they're just going to go ahead and call the tune and just try to quickly finish their hand, discarding probably the 6 and the 8 pin. Looking around the rest of the table, I don't really see anybody that could possibly match him for speed, because each player has got some extra hanging tiles or some Kanchan weights or things like that make it a little bit more awkward compared to Shane's hand.
Yeah, even Everett's hand on the left is kind of far away. So no one with we're getting into the second row of discards right now, and it looks like everyone's still kind of working to improve their hand at this point. That was a good draw, though, by Luke, dealer, completing that 2-3-4 shape.
Well, the other interesting thing is that earlier Andrew had discarded that 8-mon in the beginning of the second row. Shane could have called it and tried to go Otozuke, waiting for the tune for later, but has decided not to and kept the hand closed. I can see why, because they haven't seen the tune yet and they're afraid maybe it's stuck in other people's hands. But I wonder if whether or not that might come back to bite him, in the sense that he may struggle to get to Tenpai faster than some of the others at this point. Because as you said, Luke has been drawing some really good tiles and actually is sitting Ishan 10 at this point.
Yes, with that last draw, putting him Ishan 10, and it's a nice. Oh, we just had a little skip, but I'm wondering, he just got his pair right there, possibly, and a reach from Andrew, waiting on the
147.
147, which is a
And
nice 3-sided weight.
And so this is, again, goes back to Shane not really calling the 8-mon and trying to push forward the hand. Now they're stuck with actually that 1-mon in their hand. It doesn't really fit, and obviously, and there it goes. And so, yeah, as a result, he ends up paying in. So, I mean, I can understand the decision making by Shane in that sense, to not call and try to wait for that tune to come out and confirm the Yakuhai instead. But unfortunately, that kind of handicapped him for the rest of the hand.
Right, and that was an interesting observation from you. That's something I didn't think about. So
Moving on to East 3, Andrew with the lead, the only one over 30,000 at this point, does have a pair of off-wind souths to use, possibly in a Pinfu shape, because they are actually Ishan 10 at this point.
Yeah, I think, unless I saw it incorrectly, I think he opened with those 2 complete Mon shapes.
Yeah, so he's really close to declaring Ricci here. Shane on the right, and Everett up across from dealer. Both have Yakuhai pairs, but weren't able to take advantage of it fast enough, as Andrew manages to get Tenpai, declare the Ricci for Ricci, Pinfu, and at least Dora 1.
Right, what's lightning quick there, reaching on the 5th discard. And waiting on the 2-5 so. And we've got a chase from Luke.
Waiting on just the 2 so. So there is a possibility for a double Roan should somebody decide to discard it, although looking at the table, it's a little iffy whether or not you should, based upon what everybody's discarded. It's not really shown itself to be safe. So it's possible one of them may just end up drawing it instead, or we just end up in a draw as of right now.
And as you say that, I think Everett just did draw a second 2 so.
Now this is interesting, because Shane had been bailing, discarding the 2 Hakus, manages to draw 3 Easts out of nowhere.
Wow.
And now it's also Tenpai, but just waiting for the 7-mon. So
wow, so we got 3 people reached at this table right now, and wow, and the 3rd so gets drawn by Everett.
Right, which means that at least for Luke, he's almost out of luck here. Was it Andrew still has the 5 so possibility, but I don't, it's either going to have to come out. Well, I mean, it could come out from either the other 2 players or Ricci. So with 3 Ricci's out on the table, you're effectively getting extra draws, because any tile that nobody else is using, they have to discard, and there it goes. Even if you didn't want to discard that 7-mon, Andrew had to do so, and pays into Shane, who not only wins the hand, but gets the other 2 Ricci sticks in addition to his own. So,
and like you mentioned, that hand just he started bailing, and it really just came together for him as he was, I guess you call that side bailing.
if it was side bailing because I think he was actually trying to bail hard because he could have called the Haku and tried to progress his hand. He didn't.
Oh,
Decided to discard those, and the next thing you knew, he draws 3 east, and it's like, well, I guess this is what I'm supposed to do now.
right.
Speaking of Shane, he also has started off with a pretty decent hand here. Uh, could end up with Pinfu shapes, although 7-9 Kanshan is not ideal.
But and to his right, Luke also starting with some nice shapes. You've got the 3, 4, 5, 6, and Mon in the 7, 8, 9 pin.
Oh, that's
Uh,
Everett over there on the right.
I'm sorry, Everett. Mr. Hat is Everett. Yep, on the right. Apologies there.
But Luke
Uh,
actually does have some pretty good shapes across with several pairs, but also a lot of tiles really linking in with each other. Like there's another pair with a 6, but at the same time, he could have tried to flex over to some type of Ipeco shape. But having discarded the 5, so looks like he is going to go push for that Chi Toy. He does
which
get
just
there.
yep, he just
On the
drew.
Dora, decides not to reach, so it's Tanyao Chitoi Dora 2 for a Mongon. If he decided to reach, he could easily bump that to a Hanuman, but with the Dora being the 5 pin, I can see why he's not declaring reach here.
But we do have a reach from Everett with that great draw of the 7 Mon.
Unfortunately, it does leave him with the 4 so weight. He could be within 4 so or 6 so. So it is a central tile Kanchan weight. We'll see. Have to see if he gets there or not. But
We
because of that Ricci, now you see
Luke
Luke declare Ricci as well, knowing that he's got an extra person to possibly discard into him. Doesn't matter though, because that 4 so does come out, and Everett ends up winning a 130 to get him over 30,000 points as we head quickly into the South round.
now already South 1. Yeah, I can just I've at this point been able to play with Andrew, but of course I play with Luke and Everett every week, and I haven't had the pleasure of playing with Shane yet. But even it looks looks like it's a table of strong players. Is I guess what I'm getting at.
It's definitely a table. I'm familiar with some players. Like I'm familiar with Luke. I'm familiar with Shane because he's actually part of our club in Seattle.
Great.
The other two, not as much, although I am familiar with their names. So, but yeah, given the fact that this is Pool C, these are people that have joined the league this year, or this season, and as a result, it's not just people who are in the B2 league, but people who could easily
Well,
be in other divisions, but they're going to have to work their way up the ladder.
right, right. We've already got a reach from across the table. Andrew reaching once again pretty early, but even the dealer has some fun things going on in their hand. A possible 3, 4, 5, 3, 4, 5 in the pins, and in a so shape that can develop pretty quickly.
Right. So let's see here. Andrew is waiting for the 1-4 pin. Nothing really in the discard pile trying to indicate anything because all his discards have been terminals and honors. So nothing, no hints to really go off there to try to help anybody else play defense against him. Luke could have also called the Hatsu to try to push for their hand, opted not to, and is going to play defense for the rest of this hand.
The four,
Over. Go ahead.
I was just saying at this point the fours are practically all tied up. We've got 2 in the dealer's hand and 1 in discards. I don't know how likely that 4 pin is to come out.
Well, it's probably going to be at least not as likely now, considering what Andrew is discarded in the second row, even if he has no choice. There's been no Pinzu discarded. There's been central Sozu tiles discarded. So its chances are people are going to bail. They are going to bail probably in the Sozu suit more than anything else.
Right. But it's interesting that once again a really early reach, but we're in the third row of discards. So does this tell you that I mean, is this just unlucky, or is everyone at this table pretty good at being defensive?
Probably both. I think it was unfortunate for Andrew that he did not discard any other Pinzu tiles up until the end of the second row, because that gave everybody else time to find safe tiles elsewhere. So you don't really see any Pinzu tiles being discarded by anybody at this point.
Right.
And Everett decided to go ahead and bail their hand for now. I think the only person that was pushing was Shane, and was he Tenpai? He wasn't quite Tenpai yet, but decided to push the one pin anyways. Didn't hurt him too much, so a lot of small hands here so far in game number 1 has kept the score pretty close between everybody. Even if there's 3 players above 30,000, Luke isn't that far away, and even like a dealer 2 on hand would be enough to put them close to, if not in first place.
And opening on that note, opening with the pair of dragons in the hand, lots of so, maybe not enough so, and certainly with that discard of the 8 so, enough so to push for, half flush or anything, but some strong shapes in so, now 2 complete shapes in so, and the pair of 4s is ready, but could also be a set, and then that 3-4 is just waiting on the 2 or 5. But that 7 pin, I guess, hanging on to for maybe that chance of Dora coming.
Well, and the other thing, not just that, but it's also the possible pivot to a type of pin, or to a Tanya shape. If they draw the Dora, they could easily just discard the 2 Hatsu and try to go for a Richi Pinfu Tanyao, especially with that 6-pin draw. He guarantees Tanyao. So now you get Richi, Tanyao, possible Dora, possible Sumo. And so now the hand's definitely more expensive. And with it only being the end of the first row, Luke opts to go ahead and go for that tack, and I don't blame him for that.
No, and Andrew, though, 2 strong shapes completed in Mon, and 3-5-8 pins. So not great, but certainly not, I wouldn't say, weak, and 2 West tiles that aren't. Oh, and we have with that call, Luke is Tenpai waiting on either the Dora or 5 pin.
And that's probably just a decision to make, in the sense that you are in the mid game, you're approaching near the middle end of second row, and so as a result, maybe didn't want to wait to try to get that Tenpai, just wanted to bank the points and continue the dealership. So did get the Tanyao hand for 1,500, does continue the dealership, and we'll try to maybe bank some more points elsewhere.
Yeah, opening with a pair of Easts, so as dealer, that's nice, and certainly now that we're in the South round, it's unlikely anyone else is going to hang on to Easts if they draw it. So it could be a quick way for Luke to make his hand fast and keep his dealership going.
Well, if he didn't have that, the only other option might be a 789 Sanshoku, but the rest of the shapes aren't that great. So having the East to call will certainly be useful. But unfortunately, around the rest of the table, other players have gotten Yakuhai shapes. For instance, Everett on the left now has a confirmed Yakuhai, having drawn that 3rd Hatsu. Still needs a little bit of help. That 8-mon certainly does, and could either go for either a Toy, or maybe if they end up drawing another pair, they could shift to a Chi-Toy, although I don't think they'd want to. And then on the right side, if you looked at Andrew, they have the pair of Chuns, and they'd like to call that. The rest of their shapes are actually pretty self-explanatory. If they actually get a pair on one of their uncompleted runs, they may actually discard the 2 Chuns and maybe go for a Tanya or Pinfu shape, much like Luke did in the prior hand.
Sure, just add some value. And with that discard, it looks like Everett is ready, Tenpai, waiting on either the 6 pin or the 8-mon.
Doesn't declare Ricci, and I might understand why. The 6-pin is a little bit more central, and maybe he wasn't expecting that. And the other problem is that one of the 8-mons is the Dora indicator. So they're maybe hedging their bets because of the fact they think that their weight's a little bit thin and unlikely to come out, or maybe drawn themselves. And with no Dora, I can also see why. But it's possible they could also just jam it and then force other people to make that decision whether or not they want to push with their hands. But in the meantime, it was just because of the way the game's been going, decides to go ahead and play it safe. Does draw the 6.
And that's 3,000 points for Everett. And I apologize for my cat meowing at me if you can hear her. And Andrew back in the dealer spot. Once again, opening, he just opening with some really strong shapes once again.
It's actually the Ishan 10 right now, but even if they got Tenpai at this moment, they'd end up on a Kanshan weight regardless. And considering it's still relatively early, they're probably going to see if they can't wait to improve. They might wait and see if they can improve it so that when they do reach E later on, it might be something where it's not just a single tile weight.
Right. At the rest of the table to the right, got the pair of 6, pair of 7 pins, and but no other kind of completed shapes. Yeah, a pair of 7s as well in the Mon shape. And then with that one, another pair. So now I wonder, well, no. So that answers that question. I guess they're not going to be trying to hang on to the pairs, the discard.
No,
of
they
that.
already discarded the one beforehand. And in doing so, if you looked over on the left now with Luke, has called the Easts, going to go ahead and push for the Honitsu hand. Again, because the point totals are really close to each other and we're in South 3 already, he's definitely looking to at least try to get over 30,000 and put himself at least in a good position for the final hand here.
Sure.
Still is a little bit further away than maybe he'd like, but decided to push the issue and make everybody make a decision as to whether or not they want to continue with their hands should they have to discard a Pinzu tile.
Correct. Now we're getting into the second row of discards. We see one red dragon out, so there's a fourth unaccounted for. Since he called the Easts, and now and he's Tenpai with that discard, waiting on either the red dragon or the 4 pin.
And that's actually important because he could have taken the 2-sided weight with the 3/6 if he decided to discard the 4 pin, but he decides specifically to try to wait for that last tune because that would add value to the hand. Instead of just being Honitsu, it would be Yakahai Honitsu for what would that be if it was 4/4? Yeah, so it would only still be for 3,900, but again, 3,900 puts him at 31,000. And depending upon whether or not he sumos, he could easily be very, very close to first place.
Absolutely. Looks like everyone else is kind of, I know it looks like the dealer playing it a bit safe. Pitch the 6, put the 6. And we have Shane pushing with the reach.
Waiting for 2/5, so which actually, again, if Luke's going to push for his hand, he's going to discard anything non-Pinzu. So he's basically got another set of draws that he can work off of with Luke.
And Andrew reaching.
Yeah, Andrew may have. I don't know if Andrew was really playing it safe rather than just not getting the tiles he needed. And so he finally gets to his Tenpai, decides to go ahead and declare the Ricci, waiting on just the 4. Which I can understand why, again, for points and because he's got 2 other people that would easily feed tiles into him. But it's Shane who gets the benefit and actually scores a big hand, or I think our only big hand really of the day so far.
Yeah,
and that puts him in first place by over 30,000 heading here into South 4.
And now and unfortunately Luke pulling a little further away from the 30,000 mark, and Everett also now going to be looking to, in the last hand, trying to win something that will put them both over the 30,000 mark. We've got Shane as dealer with a couple of interesting shapes. That 3, 4, 5 could be considered complete or draws the 2, and now you've got 4, 5 that can continue to grow into a second shape,
Boom.
and already a pawn from across the table, but it doesn't look like that call. I'm trying to look.
Luke is probably pushing for I would imagine for another Honitsu based upon the fact that he called the 9-mon.
Yes.
Again, looking to try to get some points here. He also is very close to being in last, so wants to try to avoid that. And if he can, even if he can bluff here and represent a Honitsu / Chinitsu shape, it might scare others and might prevent other people from getting into Tenpai and allow Luke to
There's
hold on to at least the third place spot. I'm not sure, unless he gets to a Chinitsu, whether or not he's going to be able to catch second, because that's 77,200 points away. So he would need like a Honitsu, either Honitsu Yakuhai or something like that, in order, again, directly hit against Everett in order to be able to take second. So this could just be a bluff to try to prevent anybody else, Andrew from catching him. But unfortunately, it doesn't happen, and both Andrew and Shane declare Ricci back to back here.
Well, and a con, which is going to add some Dora value to dealer's hand.
Well, that's Uradora, which if you're in Andrew's position, again, you're in last, but you're not also that far away from the top two. So if you hit Uradora and multiple Uradora, if he depending upon whether those two that are down there, he could end up vaulting himself. But that's really the hope, and he's in last place, so there's really not much to lose at this point.
And deal in. And that,
I guess the Ricci Ipeco does not hit the Urador, but a swing of 11,000 points is enough, actually, to put Andrew into second place.
And put an end to this first game.
Right. And unfortunately for Luke, again, this is the reason why he was trying to possibly push for, or at least represent Honitsu or something like that, was to try to prevent himself from falling into fourth. But unfortunately, with that last pay in there, unfortunately that's what's happened. So it's somewhat of a bad luck fourth, considering that the game was consisted of mostly small value hands up until that one from Shane right at the end, where not many people were going to be able to catch up to that in one go.
Yeah, it was one of those games where there wasn't a huge point spread. So in a game like that, it's like almost that placement at the end, the placement bonus, could hurt you more than the actual. And apologize. It looks like our stream is paused.
Oh no, that's on our side. It's
okay, that's just a message on our side. But anyway, you have a game where those scores were so close, anybody could have, had a Mongon and drastically changed where they were sitting.
So I am seeing the next game has started. I'm not seeing it. Oh, wait.
Apologize for any technical difficulties.
Yeah, it looks like we had some technical issues here, and our internal stream seems to be back online, but oh wait, okay, now we're good. Sorry for the technical difficulties, everyone. But we are into the second game now. Luke is first dealer, is sitting, still sitting 2 away, but can easily get into Tanya shapes and
absolutely.
Sorry, we're still having a little bit of issues here.
In the meantime, we'll try to look around the rest of the table. To the right, Everett's to his right, and I only know this based on conversations we have at you know at
1、
club, but they even have made jokes in the past about where in relation to where they're sitting next to
1、
each other, how that affects each other's games, which is common for a lot of people. But again, just like
8、
it'll just happens to be a little nugget since they weren't joking about that very long ago.
And
1、
okay.
We're back here. Looks like with that call, uh, Luke is 10 pi, waiting on either the 4 or 7 pin.
Andrew is Tempai. I believe that's Andrew, waiting on the 2 or the 5. So
4、
Oh, and Luke clinches it. Nice way to start the match right there. Gets to hang on to his dealership. Looking at the shapes, not anything super super strong, but does have a completed shape in pins, and at least his other shapes are easily able to grow. And with the
mean, if we look on the left, Andrew's gotten Onko of Souths. Not much else going on. Doesn't really have any other completed melds. We'll still need some help on that side. Shane still has some disjointed tiles around, and so I'm not quite sure where they're going to be, if they'll be able to build anything quickly. The only person that will be Everett, who's gotten at least one completed meld and can easily complete some others with some good shapes over on the right.
Yeah, they're very strong shapes. That 5, 6, 6, 7, in the So and the 4, 5, 5 in Mons. They're both draws the 3, draws the 5 in the Mon, and then it's just those are shapes that personally I when next to a completed shape, a shape that you'd like to see in your hand that can kind of grow quickly.
Interesting here. Shane is looking now to push for a Chinitsu. Could have called the 4 Mon, could have even called the 5 Mon. Opts not to do so. So possibly hedging, possibly trying not to give it away at this point. Again, that might cause their hand to slow down a little bit. We'll see what happens as a result of not calling, but does get the 7 Mon. So, but decides not to go for the Chinitsu instead. 1, 2, 3, 4, 4, 5. So it is Pinfu. It'll be Richi Pinfu. Itsu is guaranteed. Could get an Ipeiko if they get the 6 Mon, and that would be the more expensive side.
Right, and I mean it's really strong, and it's interesting. I guess this was a decision about speed, because with that draw of the 8, with only 2 pins sitting in your hand, he could have easily made a different decision and just tried to full flush.
Yeah, it's a little bit more difficult because it's the 8 Mon, it's closer to the edge, and given the shapes of the tiles that he had down there, it would be a little bit harder to incorporate it. He would need to have best case scenario, he would have drawn the 7 Mon. Worst case scenario, he maybe pairs it or draws the 9 Mon, in which now you're looking at a possible Penchan weight, and it's not ideal, and it would be worth more. So he decides to go ahead and take the confirmed Itsu route, possibly throw in the Ipeiko, make the value that way.
Yeah, no, like you mentioned, the Peiko's there, the Eats, or potentially there, the Eats is there. So I mean, I'm not questioning the decision. I just,
Oh,
you
no,
know,
no, 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 no. It's just more of like what he decided to do at that point, where he would have had only one non-Monzu tile had he kept the 8, but the resulting 8 would have been much worse than where he is now. But either way, I think everybody would have realized that Monzu were basically death against Shane's hand. Just opts not to discard it and let him take the 3,000 as opposed to whatever value that hand could have been from
right,
everybody else's point of view.
right. Look at or two players opening with a pair of three players opening with a pair of
There's 3 players. Everybody but Everett has Yakuhai on the table, should somebody discard the third of that tile.
which it's unfortunate because figures Everett's the dealer, and
No, but Everett makes up for it with some pretty decent shapes of his own. Doesn't really have a confirmed pair. The 8 so doesn't count considering that he has a 7, 8, 9 at this point. So we'll still need to find a pair somewhere, but the rest of the shapes look really good. He has a 3, 4, a 7, 8, and then the 6, 7 pin, and those types of shapes you can easily draw and fill in those onko and not onko, those melds, and then have a hand that could rival everybody else in terms of it, if nothing else, at least some speed here.
absolutely. But and then hands around the table
Yeet.
developing nicely. We already have a reach from Luke. Now
So Luke
waiting.
doesn't actually confirm his Yakuhai, instead finishes the rest of the hand, and is now waiting on a Shanpon waiting for his Yakuhai Chun or the Tumon. Uh, Andrew could have called that Haku earlier from Luke before he declared Ricci. Again, opted not to, and is now discarding that as safe tiles. I don't know if they're really bailing here more as maybe buying time to see whether or not they could still fight for their Tenpai, because they just filled in their Kanchan weight there with that 7 pin. So it's still possible they might fight for this hand if they get Tenpai,
Yeet.
considering that the 5 so is a loose tile and it is half Suji to the 2.
And they, as you mentioned, are going to push for it, declaring the reach.
And
Everett.
Everett also gets to their Tenpai, has the Pinfu shapes,
Sumo.
now waiting for the 6, 9
Oh.
con. It doesn't matter. Luke draws the more expensive side of his weight.
Yes, draws the red dragon. Wow.
Doesn't hit the Ura, so it's only 4,000 in total, but considering where everybody else was at that point in the hand, certainly happy to get out of there with those 4,000 points.
Absolutely, and with that is a strong leader right now, which, and of course we're not even out of the East round yet, so I don't want to speak too broadly here, but strong start for Luke, which after the last game, he certainly is needs and wants.
Meanwhile, in this hand now, Everett has called 2/3 to a Yakumon, but doesn't have any tunes, so can't exactly get there yet. At least for now, is pointing towards some type of Honitsu shape for double Yakuhai for a Mangan. As a result, Shane's pushing forward with their hand having called twice now himself. Still sitting Ishan 10, doesn't have a pair, but could still end up on like a 2-5 pin, so it's not terrible.
And everyone else at the table, I'm just trying to look see if there's any. You got the pair of Easts across the table in Andrew's hand, as well as a completed.
That's Luke across the table.
I'm sorry, I'm looking at the wrong name. That is Luke. One Andrew's name is also at the top, but the correct yes, Luke is at the top of the table with the East, but also 2 Easts sitting in Everett's hand, so they might clog each other up there.
Right, and that's unfortunate for Everett because they do need help trying to get to their Tenpai. Shane did get to a Tenpai, but in order to do so, had to discard Monzu, which allowed Everett to make that third call with the 6 mon and make his hand that much more scary because with that many calls, you generally have to assume that they're tempi. And now, unfortunately for Shane, he's now stuck with that 4 mon because I don't think he's willing to discard that. And that 5 mon doesn't help him because even if he wanted to wait for switch it around, he'd already discarded the 6 mon, so now he's got free 10 issues that he has to deal with. And
And,
now he has to bail because he's drawn the tune and can't. Oh, he pushes it.
oh wow! But with that, ends up with some nice shapes there, waiting on just a pair.
Right. He's technically got a Sun Shine Away, but it's really just 258 for the pair. Everett's now Tempai waiting for just the 3 mon. Luke is Tempai needing the Otozuke for the East. Can't win with a 9 pin, which is the Dora. So it looks like possibly the weights are just gonna stick or be stuck unless somebody's forced to discard one of
Oh,
those tiles, and there
wow.
goes the 3 mon.
Wow. And that's a mon.
Right, yeah. Double Yakuhai Honitsu guaranteed Mangan. Interesting that because looking back at it, that 3 mon would have paired Luke up, and it was late in the hand, so it's probably he might have not thought it was not worth it to switch, but he could have thought about maybe discarding the 1/2 mon instead and tried to go for a toy, not having to depend on the East. But either it was a one chance with the 3, or it was just too late in the hand to switch. But unfortunately for Luke, it does eat into
Lead.
his lead, and actually he gives it up to Everett at this point by just 200 points.
Andrew Dealer with a strong looking hand with the lots of Monzu. Not now, and I say that, and I mean there's not the shapes are a little messy there, right? The 7s and 9s don't really connect, and
Well, the bigger issue right now is the fact that he's sitting on the Dora,
right,
and
which
unless he's gonna push for a Honitsu type shape, that Chun is probably going to come out unless he can somehow make that his pair. Like for instance, here, he's really close. He's been really close here about making that his pair, but otherwise, that Chun's gonna be a stick in his craw in terms of trying to finish the hand.
there are two others out in people's hands, and just now we're getting to the second of the discard, and I think everyone, if they're going to have to make a decision pretty soon, if they're going to well, and look, the fourth one was just drawn by Everett, so Everett has it as a guaranteed pair.
Thing is,
And
if you look at Shane to the left, he's definitely aiming for a toy here. Would love to get the 6 to call and wait for Chun Tonki. I doubt he probably would frown if he pairs up the 4 pin instead, because that means he would have to discard the Chun. But that's, to me, looking over at Shane, that's what my guess his angle is. He really doesn't want to have to discard it, but
he won't,
again, because he gets to a Tempai shape, he does.
and Everett gets to call it, and
Well, not only that, now it frees up Andrew to discard his tune and now can focus on his hand. Unfortunately, having kept it in there, it made his hand a little slower, and Shane does draw the 6 to complete his hand and take the lead actually here heading to the South round.
heading to South, everyone, just like last game, not far from one another. For a short time, Luke, who's now dealer again, was pulling ahead a little bit, but now everyone, is on pretty even footing here. Even Andrew, who's in last, is not, more than a Mongon away from taking a substantial lead.
So here we are looking at South 1. Luke trying to see if he can reclaim the lead here on his dealership. Does have some decent shapes, but still needs to fill a couple of those in.
And pitches the 3, which kind of eliminates Chansadora, but doesn't need it. The hand is strong on its own and developing nicely.
So let's see here. Second row now. Luke. So still sitting 2 away.
Each on 10, yeah. But
Probably thinks that with that, even with that 6-0
good
being
call.
somewhat central, thinks that probably it'd be too hard to push this into a Tanyao shape, and the 6-0 doesn't quite fit considering that his current shape waits for a 2-5-8.
Right, but it was a nice draw he had. Still now 2 away, but and a reach waiting on the 3 mon from Andrew, which we see 1 out in discards, 2 in Shane's hand. So the last one floating somewhere, somewhere in the wall.
Luke decided to go ahead and discard the tune, which Everett has now called. Was able to did decide to pitch the 5-pin as a half Suji to the 8 that was dealt before Ricci. Now is Tenpai waiting for the 3-6 pin.
And I'm looking at Everett's hand. Everett is Tenpai as well, waiting on the 3-6.
Yeah, that's what I mentioned earlier.
Oh, I'm sorry, I missed that. I was probably looking at Luke's hand. But Luke now reaching.
Now waiting on the 4-7 mon, which Everett has just drawn. And decides to go ahead and sidestep it, at least for now. Can still get back to Tenpai if they're able to get, like, say that what could have gotten back to Tenpai if they gotten the 2 mon, but I think it's decided that it's not worth it at this point.
No, probably gonna. And now, has the Norse as a potential pair, but also safe now for sure.
Yeah, you're at the end of the hand. I don't think they're going to try to get back to Tenpai at this point.
No. So just Tenpai payments here. So still South 1, though, because Luke was able to finish Tenpai, having reached, of course, and gets to try again.
We may not get a chance to, as Andrew has called now twice. Still Ishan 10.
Ishan 10.
But definitely putting the pressure on everybody else to try to get their hands done quickly here.
Yeah, and it's got a pair of green dragons in Shane's hand, a green dragon in Everett's hands. So if Everett decides to drop that dragon, might be Shane's ticket to a speeder hand. Not that, that 3-4-5 so is completed. The 3-4 is a great shape, and those 2-5, a pair of 5s potentially, or draws the 4, and that becomes a nice little shape in and of itself.
So Andrew has gotten now did pair up the door, and now has called it. Now it's sitting Tenpai for 3-6 pin. Not sure if they're going to get it because it already looks like, well, for a second, I was thinking about whether, well, it's more of the fact that people might be worried about not just the fact
Boom.
that it's already a Mongon, but like people might be worried about having thrown on top of that, which it isn't there. But with a Mongon sitting over there, I'm not sure how many people will push for their hands. Although in the case of Shane,
Boom.
he may not have a
Well,
choice
there it
considering
is.
he's already called twice.
Wow. And that Mongon with the Ricci sticks, or the bonuses, I should say. Wow, he's starting with a pair of red dragons and some not a lot of great shapes, but with that pair of wests and all that Monzu sitting in the hand, maybe. Oh wow, what a great
Yeah,
draw!
it's definitely a Honitsu at this point. Double
Wow,
Yakuhai Honitsu. You're looking
great
at
draw!
12,000 points there,
Wow,
assuming they can get those calls.
wow, yeah, that was a great draw. And look at this with the draw of the green dragon. What
Boom.
if? I'm a dreamer. I always like to say, "What if?"
I don't know if he's gonna go for it if he manages to call either that
Boom.
West or the Haku.
Wow,
Okay, so they are gonna go for it. Because
wow,
the thing is, he could have taken the Tenpai, discarded the green dragon, but is gonna try to push for
wow,
potential either Shosangen or Daisangen with that West, having committed to discarding the West pair.
yeah, wow, 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 wow.
The only thing is again, this slows his hand down. So can anybody catch up in the meantime? And the answer is possibly, because Shane is, was it sitting Ishan 10 at this point.
Oh, wow, and he draws it. Wait,
So
wow,
apparently didn't need that much time to get to
wow,
Tenpai for the possible Yakuman here.
wow.
But again, because he's already showing two to the Yakuman,
Yeah, he
I highly doubt anybody is gonna push that green dragon in. So
no,
if Everett is gonna get that Yakuman, it's gonna be done all by himself here to draw that last dragon.
but it's all. I mean, yeah, but and it's not living in anyone's hands. So that means, I mean, Everett has a chance of drawing it. We don't see the green dragon anywhere.
Right. Again, because he's having to draw it himself, it's now gonna be a race to see who's willing to fight for it, B, who's gonna avoid drawing the green dragon to stop their hand. Because if anybody draws it, they're certainly not gonna discard it.
No,
So
and we're now
we'll see if
getting.
anybody can fight him at all at this point.
I'm just looking to see if anything else is. Oh,
So,
there
oh
it
my
is. Oh, wow.
gosh,
Boom.
Oh my god! Wow! Wow!
I
Wow!
was not expecting that. As soon
No
as I saw that green dragon
way!
come out into
Wow!
Andrew's hand, I thought immediately that his hand was gonna be dead. I couldn't even get to that point. I just said, I couldn't even say anything. The next thing I knew, I just saw it come out, and I'm like, "Well, I guess that's it."
Wow! Wow! That was incredible.
Huh.
Oh man, that's so
So, now
wow.
here in South 2, you
Oh,
can almost just write this game as being complete at this point.
right, right.
Everett is gonna easily bank a first here, barring a complete collapse, and it's gonna be a battle between Shane and probably a battle between Shane and Luke for second place here.
Wow. Yeah, well, and look, he's starting strong. Open, yet he has 3 red dragons in his hand, so he doesn't even have to stop this. If things go well.
Well, no, I mean, and the thing is that again, because this is league and this is not just like individual games or anything like
Boom.
that, you do want to try to rack up the points here. And
Right.
Everett currently sitting on
Oh
what
my
is that?
god.
16, 15, 14, 13, 12, 11th place right now. Could use all the points they can get. I mean, this will certainly put them positive
Absolutely.
at this point. So they're just going to see how far they can take it with this one game here now.
Yeah, I mean, if they can hit that 80,000 mark, you're now, you know, that's a lot of points. And given how close in the standings, everyone out of like third place, between that like 4 and 10 mark, everyone's very close. I mean, this is absolutely a literally game changing, which of course you'd expect with three dragons. But I mean, if ever it's able to maintain this lead or even grow it, I mean, I don't have the standings in front of me, but could absolutely just shoot up.
Well, I mean, like I said, he's basically turned his score positive, assuming that this game ends right now. So it's just now it's a matter of how much they can push this forward. And he's Tenpai again now, waiting for 4-7 Mon, not declaring
Well,
Ricci because the sevens are all mostly stuck in Luke's pawn over there.
oh, is that gonna?
Does draw the 8, so right after the Ricci,
Ew,
will push it.
oh,
It's only for 2,000, so it's not that
uh,
big of a deal for him.
conversely, I
Um,
guess I should mention conversely, and we're talking about the change for Everett, but we should also talk about the change, for Andrew, who at the start of this game was second place, and he has quite the cushion in the standings between again the gap between third and fourth place is like 100-point gap, and I don't know how much this is, if the game were in here, how far um, Andrew's going to drop, but basically secured the fourth place and is going to take that -15 in addition. So that's um, really good game, really good game for Everett. But if you are on the other side of that, if you're Andrew, um, you're feeling it right now.
well, but the thing is, he's if nothing else, still got a dealership left. He's got all last, so he's not completely stuck to a huge negative score. It's possible
Sure.
he could go on a run himself and be able to at least get out of the negative territory in terms of points wise here. He'll probably still suffer a fairly decent negative, but he might be able to mitigate that here in the last couple of hands.
Sure. Look how Shane, having some strong shapes there as dealer, um, potential Ipeco in the the pins, which of course would be the first thing to drop. But I mean, that one Monzu ready to go, 5-6, close to
Well,
be
the bigger issue for him right now is the fact that he doesn't have a pair. So
right.
even if he were to complete everything else, either he's having to wait for a pair, or he's gonna have to wait for that Penchon 3 so. So while he does have the Ipeco, it's not quite ideal right now. And with that 4 so draw, he could switch over to a Pinfu shape, and he
Paired it
does.
and does. So now the ones are his pair.
So not a expensive hand by any stretch of the imagination, but it'll at least be a hand with a pretty decent weight at the end to get some points back, try to catch up to Luke here to try to get that second place and be positive.
And on that note, Luke does reach.
Waiting for Cheap Toy, waiting on the East, which is the Dora. So certainly a understandable and worthwhile Ricci. Shane pursues, having gotten to his Pinfu Tenpai, waiting for the 4-7 Mon. Fortunately for him, there's only one East that's still alive that he could possibly draw and deal out to Luke. So
Seven.
his risk is a little bit less than what you might think. He might be able to get the 4-7 otherwise,
Oh, 7
and
goes.
just does.
Wow. There it is, plus 4,900 with the reach 6. And look, opening up with the pair of Souths. It's already wow, just immediate. That's mm,
So
nice, but
pair of
look at
souths. The rest of the hand looks a little bit awkward. Um, although like a 1-2-2 shape's not
Home.
is not
not
that bad considering you could pawn or chi. Same thing with a 4-5-5, but
right.
again, we'll still need a little bit of help. But at least calling the souths, he'll be able to push the hand forward.
And look to
T.
across pair of green dragons across there, uh, pair of easts that aren't really going to do much good to the right in Andrew's hand. And of course, they go out with that draw. But the green dragon, and with that discard, Tempai.
Yep. So Shane managed to get the Conchon 7 Mon from Everett, which really helped the hand because that was one of the bad shapes that he had. And now, again, yeah, is Tenpai waiting for the 1-2 pin, which even though you don't really see Pinzu out there, my guess is that, it's because they're edger tiles, they're gonna probably come out, and there it goes from.
There it is.
Yep.
Going for.
It comes out from Luke. Shane manages to narrow the gap just a little bit more. He's still 40,000 point or four. He's still 44,000 points adrift. Sorry, of second place, but is inching their way closer. Although this starting hand is going to be a little bit more awkward because there is a possible Itsu, but he will need to fill in 2 Penchon shapes in order to do it. And his other ways to try to fill in the rest of the hand are Conchon. So it looks like it could be pretty decent, but he's gonna have to get certain draws in order to get there. And in the meantime, other people might just try to shut the door, much like Everett here on the left is trying to do so, having called the East, can call the Haku, and just try to shut this dealership down and get to the end of the game so he can finally bank his points.
Call the Souths.
No, I mean he's called the South, but he can call the Haku. That's what I'm saying.
Oh, sure.
Accelerate the hand.
Yes, absolutely. And trying to see. I mean, some interesting shapes to the right, Andrew, with the nothing save. You got the completed set of the ones and the 5, 6, 7, and then another draw of the 6, which goes out. But the 2, 3 can accept a lot, and the 4, 5 can accept. Well, I say a lot, but the 1 or 4, and then the 4, 5 can accept the 3, 6. But I guess that's what's interesting is that with the 4, 5, and then the 7, 9, that becomes a little more complicated since that 7 and 5 could share the 6. Oh, and with the draw there. Oh, no.
So Everett has gotten another Yakuhai pair, is pitching the Pinzu, so now is pushing for a Honitsu shape. That's another Yakuhai Honitsu. Dora. I mean, that's 12,000 right there, possibly.
Loved by the dragons tonight. Across the table, from dealer, I'm just trying to even just look at this hand. That hand.
Eat.
Oh, reach from the dealer. I was going to say across the table, the call of the 6, 7, 8. Oh, wow.
Oh, dear, that's 12,000.
Again with the what? Oh, my gosh. The dragon came to him again. Another. Wow. 12. Now pushing close to 90,000, which, wow.
So setting the table here in South 4, it's pretty self-explanatory. Everett's is already going to bank the big win at this point, barring any comeback. Andrew is really going to have to try to build some hands together to at least get out of to work. Maybe the goal at this point is either to minimize damage or to get back to 0. And for Shane, his hopes of trying to catch up to second place are a little bit dashed at this point. He will need a Mongon of sorts, and I'm not quite sure the hand that he's got will get there. And for Luke, he is in second place, but under 30,000 means that he'll get an UMA of 0. So he'd like to win a hand here, get himself over 30,000, and then not only win a hand, but also get the +5 UMA for having a positive score at the end. So unfortunately for Andrew, it might be a bit of a hard sledding here because he's got at least one person who's going to be pushing to end this game quickly, if not two, in if you include Everett as well.
1.
Oh, and a reach from Everett. Still just trying to carry that momentum forward. And like you said, of course, put an end to this.
Yeah, and I said this is unfortunate for Andrew because he definitely wanted to try to put some hands together here to make up some ground here before this game is over, and I just don't know if that's going to happen at this point.
No, but the rest of the table looks like we have
1.
Tin
Oh,
Pie.
that will deal in.
Oh, and it deals in, and the game ends just like that with another 2,300 points. Look at that final 90,000 plus 80 one shot, taking a negative 64.88. Just like we were talking about. I mean, this is drastically going to change what the standings look like, and I don't know if even we have the ability for the standings up.
Yeah, it's a bit unfortunate. I'm still not quite sure what happened there with that Yakuman, but yeah, it does put Andrew into a bit of a tighter spot here after this game, but with so many more games left to play, I think he's on the overall he's still fine.
Sure. Absolutely. I mean, we've still got 8 games left, and I should say again, Andrew had such a cushion that, I mean, he's still at the top of the standings, comparatively. So, certainly not trying to sound dramatic or anything, but he's still in great shape. Certainly was able to afford a hit like that.
So it does look like they are going to continue on with their games here. They are going to push forward. I think they may end up playing all 4 today.
Yeah, are we going into the third game here? Because, of course, there are some other games that we can check in on if we want to, or we can.
Oh
see
no, actually, so what's sorry, it's been a little bit disjointed today about figuring out coverage. I think what's going to happen here is we're going to go ahead and at least call it here because we're going to switch commentary teams around here a bit. And then we have a B1 matchup slated to start at the top of next hour. So we'll want to switch around and get ready for that. So I think what we're going to do is call it here, or wait, hold on a second here.
I mean, depending on what your time looks like, we may have time to see this game out, but I know you are jumping in so I don't know what your evening looks like.
Okay, so I think because we still have some time before the B1 game start at the top of the next hour, we'll go ahead and watch the third game here of this set, and then we'll go ahead and switch commentary teams over for the B1 matchup.
Yeah, sounds like a plan to me.
All right, so sorry for all this, folks. It's a bit of ad hoc here as we were trying to figure everything out for today's stream. So,
But on that note, look, this is if these are updated standings. I mean, this is what I was talking about. Andrew is still in third. I mean, still at the top of the standings, and Everett gets to slide up into the sixth place slot.
Okay, so I don't know if the next game is underway, but so we've got another couple minutes here.
Okay, so just a couple minutes. And I mean, do you have any insight then on should we talk about the standings real quick? And at the like I'd meant, at the start of tonight, Everett was in 11th and now jumps up to 6th, going from negative to positive. And Andrew, who had, thanks to a really good season so far, had accumulated enough of a cushion that not only is he still in the top 3, but there's still even close to 50 points between him and 4th, which is
Yeah, I
pretty.
mean, personally for me, it's just a matter of looking at like what's happened in the meantime with everybody else. I mean, just again focusing on Everett, being able to at least take advantage of the situation that's been handed to him, move up in the standings to a point now where he is, I believe, sitting in B2 position. So he's gonna stay in the B2 league, with a shot now of moving up into the playoff position at least here in the next couple of games. Um, Luke, I don't remember where he started the day, but again, because of such the narrow range between the middle places here, I mean, everybody else, both Everett, Shane, and Luke, have a way to uh, see themselves by the end of these next 2 games here, at least either stay in the B2 position, find themselves in the B1, B2 playoff, or to possibly put themselves in position if they put in 2 good games here to challenge maybe for the top 3 guaranteed promotion spots to be one.
Sure.
So there's still a lot to play for everybody.
I mean,
Despite a lot of the swings that we've had. I mean, especially that last game, both Luke and Shane were pretty much bystanders. They still ended up taking a small negative score there. So that really didn't move them around the standings a whole lot.
sure, absolutely.
All right, so here we are starting in game 3 with Everett being dealer. Does have 1, 2, 3 pairs. Could go for Yakuhai if they're able to draw the East or the Haku, but otherwise everything kind of looks a little disjointed. The Haku though would help Luke across the table, allow them to call, get a Yakuhai if nothing else. But the rest of the shapes actually don't look that bad, so he may actually defer calling that to try to see if they can make their hand a little bit more valuable. And as for everybody else, there's still some work to be done on both sides. Andrew has Penchon 8-9 Mon, for instance, and a 7-7-9 Sozu shape, so those aren't necessarily ideal. It looks like Shane managed to get a couple of draws there to help him out here, because now he does have 2 pairs, but he has adjacent tiles that could help him turn those into Pinfu shapes. So he's actually not that far away and may actually be the closer here to finishing up their hand, although Luke does manage to call the Haku here.
Which of course means it can safely leave Everett's hand starting as dealer.
And Luke is now actually Tenpai, waiting for just the 5 Mon. I will imagine he's going to switch that up eventually.
Yeah, interesting shapes to the right with Andrew. like very strong. The 2-3-4 so is completed. 7-8-9 mon is completed. A couple potential different pairs depending on how those draw up, or sets, which way those swing. Just completed another shape, putting him in Tenpai with that draw.
Opting not to declare Ricci, maybe hoping to turn that into a Pinfu shape to make that more valuable, but in the meantime has lost both of the 2 pins that were technically live out there.
Wrong.
So was not able to win, and did allow Luke to win off of his North Tonki after Shane discarded that just now. So moving on to South 2 with Andrew as dealer. The shapes are not great, but did manage to at least draw that Kanchan 7 pin to improve that slightly. The hand does have some hints of possibly being some type of Chanta, possibly Sanshoku, but the only thing is that he has a 6-7-8. He'd have to switch out that 6 for a 9. And if he doesn't get that done before he finishes the rest of the hand, he may just have to take whatever he can get, and it may not be the Chanta, but
I'll not call both of those red dragons that came out.
Yeah, definitely looking for value here, but as I said, because he wasn't able to swap out that 6 pin for the 9 pin, it's just Ricci now waiting for the 7. It's unfortunate because that hand could have been so much more, but unfortunately, like I said, had the 6 pin instead of the 9 pin. The early Ricci, though, may cause everyone to at least pause a little bit in terms of what to discard, because there's not really much information being given by Andrew here. Though, if we look on the left, Everett has 2 Dora, has easily shapes that could be for Tanyao, for Pinfu. Even has now a Sanshoku. Well, could have a Sanshoku chance, but would need a little bit of help there. Probably would just take the Tenpai at this point. So,
and him, but helps Luke to his right, and I believe that puts Luke into
no, he's still 1 away at this point.
Waiting on the 2-6. Not
Sumo
finished. Sumo's nice.
So again, Andrew a little bit unfortunate that could not get that into a Chanta shape, but at least gets 1,000 points all and continues his dealership. The hand here looks a little bit better here to start. Does have actually, because he could at least possibly have some Yakuhai there, but does fill in that that hanging 5 mon with that 6. So definitely looks a lot better off than he did the last hand. But again, I don't know if he'll have time, because Luke on the right can easily get into some type of Tanya shapes if he wants to call for those. The only part that might be a stick in the mud here is the 7 mon that he'd have to wait for.
Sure. And I mean, I'm looking at some of these other shapes, and I mean, the dealer still looks to have maybe the potentially quickest hand here.
Yeah, definitely does. Could easily just take the Pinfu here, a Ricci Pinfu, if he fills in the 2-3 or the 6-7, 2-3 pin of the 6-7. So, but if he manages to draw the 1 or the 2 mon, they could entertain possibly going for the Itsu instead. Although I don't know, it would be more questionable if they drew the 1 mon instead, because that would mean that they'd have to definitely wait for the 2, as opposed to the other way around. If they draw the 2 mon, they may not get their Itsu, but their weights are wider because they could wait for the 1-4-7. So unfortunately, does not have the luxury. Shane calls Ricci, waiting for the 1-4 pin, which now Andrew draws and declares Ricci of their own for their Pinfu shape, waiting for 5-8 so.
Right.
and then actually missed it, but Luke was actually waiting for that 7 mon I mentioned earlier.
Wow. Shane getting a nice little bump of points there. And we are now trucking along. Luke, dealer, starting with a pair of Easts. Not a whole lot else as far as any bladed shapes other than that 789.
Well, no, I mean Luke can pivot this to say a double Yakuhai or double tone with Chanta. If he can somehow get well, let's see, if he can get, he's still 2 away though, but I can definitely see him pivoting towards some type of Yakuhai Chanta, and if he's able to keep it closed and declare Ricci, that could be a big hand for him.
Yeah, absolutely. With the call of the Red Dragons, that's putting them a little closer. Not and call of the 8s.
Yeah, he's now Tenpai waiting for the 1/4. So Luke is now Tenpai waiting for. He decides instead of maybe discarding the 1 mon and waiting for just the 3 pin, he's discarding the 2 pin, waiting for the 1 pin, which is definitely a little tricky here because you'd think maybe after discarding that they might not wait for it. And now Luke pivots again, waiting for the West, unbeknownst to him that Everett is holding 2 across the table.
Right. And what do you think of was that pivot about trying to make for a better weight, or?
Yes, exactly. And Luke does manage to get that last West out of Andrew's hand, and that puts, what was that? That was like what, double, was that double Yakuhai? Yeah, double Yakuhai Chanta for 7,700. So does pay off in the end, but was unbeknownst to him, as I said before, drawing a little bit thinner than he might have liked.
Sure. The starting hand for Luke this second go around, nothing, it's a little far away, but it's got Dora, which is nice.
It's got Dora. It's going to be a little bit hard to use it again because it's so close to the edge. And now you have to worry about Everett across the table, who's called the Souths. It's his off wind. So now you have to wonder what he has behind him. With those discards early, you'd have to assume, the first assumption would probably be some type of Honitsu waiting on Monzu. So we'll see how quickly he's able to put that together as he gets another call thanks to a discard from Shane.
And getting rid of the Green Dragon for that 7, which opens that shape up a little bit more. Certainly a nice hand for a healthy growing hand. Look at Shane there and Shane's hand and how that's developing nicely. With that 3, is moving that. If I'm looking right, not quite Ishan 10, but getting there. Has the pair of 7s, and then that 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 shape, which can accept the 1, 4, or 7, and even the another bloated 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Oh, and never mind, because we got a reach waiting on the 4 or 1 pin, which both just came out from the dealer before that reach.
And the only issue is that A, they haven't discarded any Pinzu up to that point, and then B, like you mentioned, quite a few of their weights have been discarded already. That also means that they're not using them. So depending upon whether or not they actually drew it, whether or not they discard it. But again, it doesn't matter, as Everett does end up finishing their Honitsu, and the dealership moves on.
This game, just like this second game seemed to slow down a little bit, but this game are just going really quick, just like that first game did. we're already at the end of the East round.
So Shane's dealership here at the end of the East round, sitting with 3 pairs, but doesn't have to worry about that as much because he's got tiles that are sitting around those pairs, so can easily work around that if possible. Unfortunately, Everett has decided to push forward with their hand, calling the Souths. Is actually still a little bit more adrift with their hand than you might think. So maybe just trying to accelerate the hand and get their tempi and win it sooner rather than trying to draw it all on their own.
Yeah, absolutely. And the rest of the lots of awkward inside weights around the table. On the right, you've got the 5-7 Mon, and then on the left, the 1-3 So. But other than that, in both hands, still really strong shapes. Another draw of the another East tile drawn there by Everett, which is nice for him because he's already got the Souths. So
it's interesting because Everett, I can see why Everett decided to discard the 3-4 pin because they wanted to keep the Dora, but in doing so, it's made their or had a Ryanman waiting for the 2-5 and only needed 2 tiles to do so. In order to keep that Dora around, now they're having to keep the 5, 7, and 9, and so that was 3 tiles for a 2-sided wait. And now they do get tempi. They have managed to stick and hold on to that Dora, but now they're just simply waiting on the 8 Mon. And yes, it is Suju the 5 they discarded earlier, but it's still a 1-tile wait.
1-tile wait, and not that he knows it, but tied up in 2 people's hands as tiles that they are unlikely to drop, not just because, it's close to Dora, but because they need them. Like it works in their hands.
And Andrews declared Ricci in the same kind of problem that Everett had before, where they had the 5, 7, 9 and needed to take their temp by discarding the 5. Andrew had to do the same thing here for their temp by discarding the 5 so to wait for the 8 so. So it is a Suji wait. Depends on whether or not the people here depend on that or not. But unfortunately for him, misses the sumo opportunity. Had they discard the 9 so instead, you wouldn't know that necessarily. Does eventually get it though from Everett. So gets to Urador. So a well-needed Mongon to put them into 3rd place, but within a stone's throw of 1st and 2nd at this point as we head into the South round.
South round, dealer which is Everett, a little far away on these shapes. Nothing complete, nothing like well, that 4 is going to help a little bit, but nothing super connected. Almost like one too many honors you'd want to open with. Luckily, they're all useful honors to him, right? If he draws
but unfortunately, everybody else's hand looks slightly more faster. Like, first starting with Andrew on the right, they already have 1 completed mill with 2 completed mills with the 1, 2, 3 Mon 3, 4, 5
with Dora.
Right, and then it has a 3-sided weight on the Pinzu with the 3, 6, 9 pin. So they're actually sitting Ishan 10 and would love to get the 2 so they could have a Pinfu weight. Does not get it. We'll have to wait on the 2 so as they declare Ricci here. Luke did have the pair of Haku and was hoping possibly to call and accelerate that hand, but he may stop here at this point because the hand is not coming together very well. And with the Ricci, may just decide to call it a day here with this hand. Not sure what Shane's going to do. Looks like they're going to push a little bit sideways for now. Maybe try to fight for that tempai if they can get there, considering they are sitting on 2 Dora.
He just bought Luke a couple safe tiles, though, if Luke decides to play it that way. with
I
the
wonder if
disc.
Shane will push here, decides to defer one turn, discarding the 3-so, which was Suji to the 6. Now the 3-pin is safe, so they could possibly continue to
Each.
push forward in the hand.
Oh, and
They
reach.
do, but they're waiting on just the 7-pin.
7-pin. We see all of them, including you're waiting on the 7-pin, but the 7-pin's the Dora indicator, so that's one out, right? And you don't see any other in the discards.
Well, it's dead because the 7s are stuck in other players' hands. So
Sumo.
unless they come out, he's probably in a bad spot here.
Sumo's the 2-so though, which very nice, puts Andrew in first now and going into his dealership.
And starting off with not a terrible hand. He did have some hanging Yakuhai or honor tiles out there, but the rest of the hand actually doesn't look too bad except for maybe just the isolated 9-mon. But as you can see, they've already drawn a couple of tiles here, completed a meld with a 789 pin, and has a very, very good Ryanman or I guess I don't know. I forgot what the actual term is, but like where he's sitting there with a 2-so, 3-so, 3-so, which can accept a whole bunch of tiles. So
Sure.
did have some honors to begin with, but overall the shapes looked really, really good.
And to the right, we have Luke, who just had a really nice draw with that 4-pin. You have a completed shape, the 2-3-4, the 3-4-5. The 8's a little far away from the 8-so is a little far away from the rest. So of course it goes out for again another really good draw with the 3-pin. And so now you've got the 4-5-6 and the 3-4 shape that can accept a 2 or a 5.
Yeah, he's still sitting 2 away though, because his pair currently is his pair was probably going to be the pair of 4-mons, but I guess I doubt it would be the pair of 4 pins. So it's still a bit further away than you'd like.
Sure. No,
Shane, meanwhile, has called the South, is Tempai for Yakuhai Dora 2. Possibly 3 if they get the other Dora. So either sitting on a 50, was it 52 for?
Well, and I guess
No, either 3900 or manga in hand at this point.
I guess he's going to have to hope for Dora though, because the other 2 birds are in Everett.
Well, not just the 2 1-sos, but now a Dora is now over there also in Everett's hand.
Mm-hmm. And with the draw of that 2-so makes it even more unlikely that Everett's going to end the 3. So
interesting here that Shane is still going to try to go for the value, waiting for the Dora and the 1-so, because they had drawn the 5-mon, could have pivoted, discarding the 3-mon, waiting for the 4-7-mon, but decides to try to go for a possible Mongon that's sitting out there.
Don't.
Doesn't get it, still gets rewarded, but it's a 3,900 point hit in the end.
You'll take that, right? That was a nice opening draw there for Dealer. Now has a pair of green dragons, which is going to help that hand go a bit fast.
Yeah, because there's no Pinfu opportunity, no Tanya opportunity here, is going to go straight to try to secure. Actually, no, he could pivot here. Luke is going to try to hedge around here because he could definitely call the Hatsu to turn this and confirm the Yakuhai here, but at the same time he now has the 3-4 and the 7-8 mon and the 5-6-so. So if he fills in any of those, my guess is he would have gone for a Pinfu shape, but because the Yakuhai was discarded by Andrew, he's gonna go ahead and push for his Yakuhai Dora 2, and is now Tempai waiting for the 4-7. And immediately gets it.
Wow. Very fast.
So we're already in South 3. Points have been shifting around quite a bit. Luke now sitting with the lead by 2,800 points. So not a whole lot with Andrew in pursuit. And unfortunately for Luke, his starting hand looks a little bit off with the extra honor tiles. We'll need some help in terms of drawing to try to accelerate that hand forward. I think luckily for him, everybody else is kind of sitting with some odd tiles off here and there, though that 2-pin does help Shane.
Quite a bit, yeah.
Boom.
Yeah, it does. And what about and I'm trying to look to see where Dora might be living in anyone's hands. I guess we see one in Andrew's hand, and it's Andrew's seat win too. So
yeah, it'll be interesting to see what he does with that if he ends up calling both the Haku and the West, because he does have some spare tiles to give away, but not a whole lot. So he may end up having to make that decision with the North sooner rather than he'd like. Yeah, especially now. He could discard the 6/8 mon and continue to defer, but it's more than likely now that North is not gonna fit in his hand unless he draws another one.
Luke is now 10 pi for a Tanyao, waiting just on the 5-pin.
And that's fortunate for Luke, considering the way his hand was structured in the first place. Drawing some tiles that definitely helped him, and got a couple of calls here. And now you have to be worried if you're looking at Luke from the rest of the table, because there's a real threat of wondering whether or not he has something like a Suiso for like a Yakuman, where it's just all green. Although with the Hatsu out, that might be less likely. So people might have been willing to discard other non-Sozu tiles, as you saw there with that 3-pin discard.
Right. So Luke, shifted around a little bit, paid off in the end. Now over 40,000 points. His dealership continues.
And has a much better starting hand this time around.
Yeah, look at that. The 4-5-6 shape, pair of sixes. That draw was nice.
Already sitting Ishan 10 at this point.
10, yeah, wow. And
now even with a better Ishan 10 possibly here.
Wow, another really good draw. So trucking along. The rest of the table, can't really discount what you're seeing from Shane, though. Shane's got some, while not, one completed shape, but some, other really strong, 5-6-6 and the 7-8. And that 2 is going to help them right there. That 2, should they keep it, which they do. And across the table, a pair of white dragons in Everett's hand. Everett starting pitches the red dragon, green dragon can pitch. Other than that, not a lot of great shapes, but just shapes that are close.
Yeah, and I kind of misspoke earlier with Luke's hand. They weren't actually sitting Ishan 10 at that point. They were sitting 2 away. But now they're sitting with a really good Ishan 10 if they manage to draw a 4-7 pin for, Tanya, Pinfu, Ipeiko. No Dora, unfortunately, but still you'd take that type of hand if you can get it.
Sure, and you get to stay dealer, and that's always potential. Oh, and we have a reach from Andrew. Everett.
Waiting on just 7 mon for their pair. But the 7 mon is Dora, so I can see why they decided to keep that.
Yep.
And it would be really hard to improve on it anyways, because you would have to need to have paired up, say, like the 8 or 9 mon, and then your Ricci would be waiting on a Shampone wait. So it's still either way, it's still not that great.
No,
Luke could have had a Tempai there but would have had to have discarded the Formon. Wasn't willing to do so, especially with his lead. So he's going to try to kind of wander around and see if maybe he can get back into Tempai again.
And with that 8, knows it's safe. And Everett has, is getting rid of those white dragons, which is nice because he doesn't necessarily have to move. Buys him a little time, right, before he has to make a decision about riskier discards.
I mean, the only problem with Everett is he has no dealership left. So if he wants to actually make headway here, he's gonna have to push this hand. But it's much too late at this point, considering that we're 1 tile away from the end here. Luke is not going to find his Tempai, so we are going to head into South 4 here. Luke still with the lead, although very narrowly now over Andrew. And you then you also have Shane, who's trying to get over 30,000 at least, if not catch up to the other two players. And Everett probably looking at, what is it? What's the difference there? 10,800. So with a Mangan Sumo could push him into 3rd place, and that's probably where they're going to have to look at if they're not just trying to mitigate damage overall.
Sure, absolutely. The dealer's hand. We have Shane in the dealer's seat now. A lot of shapes that can come together. That draw of the white dragon's nice, but the green dragon gets to finish for Luke, who's going to.
Yeah, Luke already, well, sitting 2 away at this point, but his 2 away can be still fairly quick because he can make several calls here to improve the hand. Doesn't even need to as he draws the 1 Mon, so now he's sitting Ishan 10. And even Ishan 10 now for a decent sized hand with a Yakuhai Honitsu, so.
And talking about, Everett wanting to push for some points here, he's got in his pocket his Seat Wind. Doesn't even need to open his hand up if he doesn't want to, which would allow him to reach. And with that 2-3, which can accept Dora, maybe get some Dora in his hand to add some value.
No, okay, so I think you're looking at Andrew's hand that has the set of Wests.
Yeah,
on the right, wherever it is, they already have 2 Dora. They're sitting 2 away, now 1 away if they decide to continue pushing. They're gonna try to see if they can work around it for now.
But Andrew did reach, and Andrew's waiting on that.
On the 1-4.
Yeah, could accept Dora, is I guess.
But Everett's certainly not going to give his up. Now, it's a bad Ipeco shape in the sense that they have to wait for the 3-pin, but they can certainly do that. Or they're actually Ishan 10 for Chitoy, come to think of it.
And that would be a quiet way to... pushes, and the 4 comes out for Andrew.
And that's enough to put Andrew into 1st place here. And with that last hand. So Andrew getting some points back here with that 1st place with a 27.2. Luke, unfortunately, ends up in 2nd with a 14.3. Shane not able to try to get back up to that 30,000. Instead takes his 3rd at minus 12.1. And then Everett, who had that big one earlier, gives a little bit of those points back here. Will be slightly negative when all is said and done here after this 3rd game with a minus 29.4.
-5. So, yeah, and it's just interesting how, we've kind of talked about it, and I know we're probably going to wrap the stream up here now at this point, but just interesting how just close everything is in the middle of this league.
Yeah, overall, like I said, overall, there's definitely a big battle in the middle, not just here in B2C, but in other divisions across the league. Everett certainly has helped his cause, even if he's taken a hit here in game number 3. If Sorry, we won't be able to cover game number 4 as we'll be switching coverage over to the B1 league here in about 15 minutes.
Yeah.
So in order to make sure we get ready for that, we'll have to go ahead and cut off this particular stream here.
But I hope, I hope people keep watching, and I hope we've got some more exciting games to come this evening.
Right, and so I will be stepping aside here. Our director Nathaniel will be taking over in the commentator seat here. So with that being said, just stay tuned. We'll be back at the top of the hour. So for Andrew, this is Edwin. Thanks for watching.
Thanks, guys.